So service design is still quite a new phenomenon, and some people really know it and some people aren't so sure what that really means. So for me, service design is taking the core methodology of design, which it turns out you can apply to a lot of things. I first learnt it as a product designer, but I've applied it to digital experiences and now end-to-end customer experiences. And I suppose that's where my definition of service design is, that it's the combination of all the touch points, and it's a rigorously customer-centric view of what is going on, and a rigorously customer-centric view of how it should go on. So designing what a perfect customer experience should be is, I think, the job of service design, and specifically the brilliant people who are service designers and bring that design methodology to life. So when you start doing service design in an organisation, it can challenge some of the structures that are in place. And for me, the biggest challenge to an organisational structure is the need to actually collaborate. A customer's experience of a company goes across a lot of different vertical parts of the organisation, and organisations tend to be organised in vertical ways, whether it's brand, marketing, content. You know, there's lots of bits to an organisation. So the job of creating a customer experience is to join all those bits up. But your customer experience is only as good as the worst part. You need it all to work really, really well, and having some parts that work well and others that don't. So when you are a service designer, you are helping people understand that the customer experience goes right across that organisation, and you are helping people understand that they have to work together. And one of the key tools, I suppose, of service design is that it creates a vision. It creates a vision that everyone can understand and get on board with. In fact, generally can help create that vision with you. And when you've done that, you begin to get that collaboration. So I would see my service designers as really key players in facilitating communication across the organisation, changing the culture of the organisation, helping people understand that it's not just their bit they have to worry about, they have to work together. So it's more of a cultural thing than an organisational thing. It's getting people into the spirit of doing that, and helping them actually share in the design process. For me, the design process is about discovery, what is really going on, not what's on the PowerPoint slide, but what the experience is really like. And that's often a real epiphany for people in the organisation. And then actually working together to solve problems in that experience, or optimise, I suppose is the best word I can use, the opportunities. So we are designing with a sense of ambition. And I think that's something service design brings to an organisation. You're not just there to iron out the problems, you're there to actually have an ambition and deliver a great experience for customers. So the position of service design in a business is a major discussion point in the industry and, to be honest, in Barclays and other organisations like us. There's an argument that the end game, the end goal of service design is to be embedded in everybody. And I think that is a great ambition. But I suppose when an organisation is in a period of transition, or beginning on that journey, you need to have a focal point for the skill set. And I think that's the way I've personally approached it in most organisations, and certainly here at Barclays. It's about recruiting people who think very differently to the people you would normally have running an organisation, a bank, successfully. Service designers are deliberately different people. They're coming from another part of the brain. They're bringing a whole set of tools that you wouldn't normally expect of people when they come to work for a financial service. So bringing in those different people and then infecting, I suppose, with enthusiasm and methodology. And I think that's how we find it really happens, that when we bring our methods to our colleagues around the building, they get excited by it and they start doing it themselves. And so that end game of service design as business as usual, the beginning of every project, let's find out what's going on, let's design with a sense of ambition. We're on that road to doing that. And I think every organisation, every part of the organisation will have that built into it. But we're not quite there yet. And even when we do get there, that need for real expertise, those people who are constantly challenging how we do things, constantly innovating how we deliver service design. And of course, the expectations of customers and colleagues, in fact, who are delivering the service is constantly going up, constantly being measured against not other banks or financial services, but other organisations right across their lives. And so we need to be as good as Santander and HSBC and Apple and Google and everyone else at the same time. And that expectation is constantly going up. So it's definitely a shared mission we're on, but service design needs to be the stage one rocket, I guess, to get us up into the atmosphere. Doing service design in a large organisation does mean people have to behave slightly differently, and it does break the model of business as usual. That is the most important thing that people have to understand when they're working with service design. We run sprint methodology, we do 2-week sprints, we focus with incredible force and energy on a problem or an opportunity. And that's actually quite rare to see in financial organisations. People aren't used to that. They might be working on a problem for months or even years. So we come in and we really nail it. So one of the interesting challenges is to get people to focus and pay attention with us and to realise that we're not in a back room working away and then we come out, ta-la. It's very collaborative and it really involves people rolling up their sleeves with us. But the feedback from that and the win from that, I suppose, is the excitement you create in the teams you're working with, their sense of ownership of the journey that they're on, their pride. It's a very different way of working, to be honest, for many people. But the positivity that comes out of that has been very, very powerful for us and helped people understand and accept different ways of working, the value of the design methodology, which is clearly not just making something look pretty. It's about fundamentally, reassessing what you're doing and improving that. And that's, I think, been very, very effective and helpful to us. And it makes for happy people, which is probably the most important thing. Someone said the other day, wow, you're great. You don't just come along with a diagnosis. You create solutions from that diagnosis, which I think says something about people's expectations. They're not used to people coming and helping them really go forward from appraising a situation. So we're pretty proud to be able to do that to people in the organisation. So of course, when you're quite a young service design team, it's always quite difficult to say, look, we did that and look, we did this. And yet actually, certainly internally, that's where we've been able to prove success. We chose not to make a big announcement and say we're here. We chose to do some great work, bring our design methodology and show the impact and success of that. And there are a couple of examples I can give you, and they're quite internal examples. But one of the issues we have with some of our customers is that they're what we call normally complex. It's true of us all, I guess, but especially in financial life, your financial needs, they might seem initially simple, but they can very quickly become complex and work across a lot of processes. And we realise that our own colleagues, whether they're in branch or on our phone lines trying to help customers, sometimes these are difficult things for them to sort out as quickly as possible. And what we don't want is situations where customers are handed on to someone else. Nobody likes that, and we don't like it either. So one of the successful projects we're currently rolling out is an internal team of experts who are really familiar with all the things that are complicated that our customers want to do. And we've made them very visible and very accessible. So any Barclays colleague in a branch who has a difficult problem to solve for a customer can go to this team of sometimes they're called superheroes, sometimes they're just called experts, but they know how to do that and they're getting instant assistance. And that's actually made a fantastic difference both to customers' appreciation of what we're doing, and obviously any problems or anything they want to do gets resolved much faster, but also our colleagues feel much happier about that. They know where to go. They know they don't have to know everything in the world themselves, but they can really make sure they help their customers do what they want to do. and they don't have to say, I'm sorry, we don't know how to do that. So it seems like a very small example, but that was a great example of the design methodology, understanding a problem that wasn't particularly identified, and then when you start to talk to people very one-on-one, you realize there is a gap. And you can fill that gap by designing a service to come in, to be findable, easy to navigate through, easy for the experts to plug into, and easy for the colleague to give a customer a good customer experience. And sometimes those little things are things that actually make huge differences. It's not all about our latest digital platform. It's just about that little stuff to make things work better. So one of the great challenges of service design is how to measure it. All that activity, all that good feeling, everyone collaborating, creating great solutions. And in fact, the measurement of service design is pretty basic. Certainly at Barclays, it's all about customer satisfaction. Now that is measured, as it is in many other organisations, by Net Promoter Score, that way of asking customers, are you an advocate of the experience you've had? Did you have a terrible time? Or are you somewhere in the middle where it's a bit, so what? And it's brutal in a way. It's absolutely brutal, but it does help the people at the top of the company actually understand whether our customers are happy or not. And let's be frank, there are some bits of the business where customers, or some types of customer, where they're not always happy. And so that's actually quite helpful to us. I always feel service design sometimes needs a bit of a sense of crisis. You need to be aware that you've got to do better. And where we find that allows us to go in, use our techniques, and we can, and have done over the last couple of years, really shifted the dial. And that's been a great story for us, because lots of people can often be working on problems and they might make an incremental shift. But what I really believe is that service design, when it comes in, the strength of the design methodology, really getting to the crux of a problem and collaboratively creating solutions that are very customer-centric, is you don't just have an incremental move, you have a transformational move. I think that's the evidence that has been really important to me, that when we come in and we do the things the way we do, we see that transformational improvement. That is absolutely measurable over a period of time by our overall NPS score. Of course, you can immediately feed back from customers and get a feeling that you're doing the right thing. And we do quite a few experiments, both internally and externally, to make sure we're doing the right thing. I think one of the attractions of service design to Barclays is actually the de-risking of what we do, the greater certainty, because we're testing, we're talking all the time as we go. There's a lot more confidence that we will have that impact, rather than big investments, waiting 6 months for NPS, and then finding out it didn't work. So I think we're a much easier thing to measure in advance of it happening, and that's great. So I'm always quite fascinated by the history of service design, which very much came out of, from my version of the history, a lot of product designers who didn't have any products to design anymore, but they had the design methodology. So a bunch of consultancies set up service design, this idea that you would design the intangible. And that very much started in the private sector, enterprise, commerce, often financial services, actually, where this idea that you could create more differentiation, you could give a better service, was really important, where industries had very little to differentiate them. But now we look to the future and we say, where is the innovation coming in service design? Where is the next best practice? Where is the impact? And I have to say, the story of at least the last 5 years is in the public sector. You know, the fact we have a policy lab in the middle of the Cabinet Office in government, sorting out really wicked problems around different aspects of policy, including Brexit and all the opportunity and problem of the future. That's amazing to see service design doing that, to see service design now in the NHS. We've seen some great digital design work in right across government with the Government Digital Services, GDS. But now that's becoming more than just digital. It's becoming real service, end-to-end, understanding customers, and really delivering full, deep, rich, brilliant experiences for really tricky parts of government. Local authorities too, using service designers to help them with problems of business and citizens. And I do find that tremendously exciting. I feel actually it's time that we in the private sector, if you like, in areas like financial services, started innovating again, if only to catch up. We're learning a lot from public sector service design. And yet I think, of course, at the end of the day, we have the same problems. If you're in financial services, you're helping people live their lives, manage their lives, achieve their goals. You know, these things are not separate from our lives in society, actually. And so I think we have a lot to learn from each other. I do think it's still the beginning of service design. But we're going to see, as it applies itself to these different areas of society and commerce, new solutions will come through, new methods, new ways of working, still built on that core of design methodology. But I think we're probably in for a good 10 years of really exciting development of the industry and much more kudos, impact, and much more acceptance right across the board. So I'm really excited about service design in businesses. I think we've done a good job of explaining design to businesses. And over the last 20 years, you know, there's been a massive realization that you have to make your service, your object, desirable, attractive. You know, we are a post-Apple generation. You know, there's the bar is very high just to exist. You have to be very good at design. But now we're using design in a less tangible but broader way with service design. And business is perhaps to some extent still learning that service design is not just a service around a product or a service around a touch point. It is actually a much fuller end-to-end total customer experience, of which your product and your service experience is in a way just a part of. So design becoming much more strategic, design helping company leaders, business leaders understand what the future is, because it's based on people's behaviors, people's expectations, their desires. You know, the customer has risen to the top, and service design is there to help businesses deliver something of value to customers in a way that was previously taken by technology, let's say, or pure innovation. That only gets you so far, and everybody's innovative and everyone's digitized. So what do we do to deliver that in a way that really touches people, that really resonates, that is on their terms? How do we use data in a human way? You know, these are the big challenges for business. How do we get over some obstacles that people have in their behavior to the way the world might be delivered to them? We have huge challenges in financial services with the open of data, but there are also massive opportunities. And I think business needs to understand that it starts with service design. Actually, you have to design these experiences, and your organisation rallies around that. And I see us doing that at Barclays, I'm glad to say. I think we're on that journey.